Welcome to AiTales, the YouTube channel that uses the power of artificial intelligence to tell true and fiction stories like never before. Through cutting-edge AI technology, we bring the past to life and uncover fascinating tales from history that have been long forgotten. Join us as we delve deep into the past and explore the people, places, and events that have shaped our world. With AiTales, history has never been more exciting or engaging. It was the summer of 1945, and the world had just emerged from the deadliest conflict in human history. The Allies, led by the United States, had defeated Nazi Germany and Imperial Japan, but the euphoria of victory was short-lived. Instead of celebrating their triumph, the victorious powers found themselves staring down the barrel of a new kind of war, a war that would not be fought on the battlefield but in the realm of diplomacy, espionage, and ideology. This was the Cold War. The seeds of the Cold War were sown long before the end of World War II. The Soviet Union, under the leadership of Joseph Stalin, had been a key ally of the United States and Great Britain in the war against Hitler's Germany. But even as the Allies were defeating the Axis powers, the Soviet Union was asserting itself in Eastern Europe, establishing puppet regimes in countries like Poland, Czechoslovakia, and Hungary. Stalin was determined to create a buffer zone between the Soviet Union and the capitalist West, and he saw Eastern Europe as the ideal location for this. The United States and its Western European allies were alarmed by the Soviet Union's expansionist ambitions. They saw Stalin's actions as a threat to their security and the stability of the post-war world. The Americans and the British were also concerned about the spread of communism, which they saw as an ideological rival to their capitalist system. The stage was set for a clash of superpowers, a rivalry that would shape world events for decades to come. In the months following the end of World War II, tensions between the United States and the Soviet Union began to escalate. The Allies had agreed to divide Germany into 4 occupation zones, with the United States, Great Britain, France, and the Soviet Union each taking control of one. But the Soviet Union's behavior in its zone was cause for concern. Stalin was purging suspected enemies of the state and consolidating his power. The Western Allies feared that Stalin's actions were a prelude to the Soviet Union's annexation of all of Germany. The first major flashpoint of the Cold War came in 1947 with the announcement of the Truman Doctrine. President Harry Truman declared that the United States would provide military and economic aid to any country threatened by communism. This was a direct challenge to the Soviet Union's expansionist ambitions and a clear signal that the United States was committed to containing communism wherever it spread. The Soviet Union responded with its show of strength. In 1949, it successfully tested its first atomic bomb, becoming the second nuclear power after the United States. This marked a new phase in the Cold War, with both sides racing to develop more advanced nuclear weapons and delivery systems. The world was now living under the shadow of mutually assured destruction, with the possibility of a catastrophic nuclear war always looming. As the 1950s dawned, the Cold War continued to shape world events. The Korean War, which broke out in 1950, was seen as a proxy war between the United States and the Soviet Union. The United States intervened to support South Korea, while the Soviet Union backed North Korea. The conflict ended in a stalemate, but it highlighted the global reach of the Cold War and the danger of direct military confrontation between the superpowers. The seeds of the Cold War had been sown long before the end of World War II. The rivalry between the United States and the Soviet Union was based on competing ideologies, conflicting interests, and mutual suspicion. Over the next several decades, the two superpowers would engage in a tense and dangerous struggle for dominance, a struggle that would shape the course of world history. As the Cold War continued to escalate, both the United States and the Soviet Union focused on building up their military capabilities. This led to a dangerous arms race between the two superpowers, with both sides investing vast amounts of resources into developing new and more powerful weapons. The United States was the first to develop and use atomic weapons during World War II, but the Soviet Union quickly caught up. In 1949, the Soviet Union successfully tested its first atomic bomb, and in 1953, it tested its first hydrogen bomb, a weapon far more powerful than any atomic bomb. The arms race intensified in the 1950s and 1960s as both sides developed intercontinental ballistic missiles, ICBMs, capable of delivering nuclear warheads to any point on the globe. The United States and the Soviet Union also developed multiple independently targetable re-entry vehicles, MIRVs, which allowed a single missile to carry multiple warheads, each capable of striking a different target. The arms race reached a fever pitch in the 1980s as both sides developed increasingly sophisticated and powerful weapons. The United States developed the Strategic Defense Initiative, SDI, a program designed to create a missile defense system that could shoot down incoming nuclear missiles. The Soviet Union responded by increasing the number of its ICBMs and developing a new generation of mobile missiles that were harder to detect and target. The arms race had a devastating impact on both the United States and the Soviet Union. The vast resources devoted to building up the military meant that both countries neglected social programs and infrastructure, leading to economic stagnation and social unrest. The constant threat of nuclear war also created a pervasive sense of anxiety and fear, as people wondered if the world would survive a nuclear holocaust. Despite the risks, the arms race continued unabated for decades, fueled by a belief on both sides that they needed to have the most powerful military to deter their opponent from attacking. It was a dangerous game of brinksmanship, with the fate of the world hanging in the balance. The arms race finally came to an end in the late 1980s, as the Soviet Union began to crumble from within. The costs of the arms race, combined with economic mismanagement and political repression, had left the Soviet Union in a state of crisis. In 1985, Mikhail Gorbachev became the leader of the Soviet Union, and he launched a program of reforms known as Perestroika and Glasnost, aimed at revitalizing the Soviet economy and opening up the political system. As the Soviet Union began to reform, tensions between the United States and the Soviet Union began to ease. In 1987, the two superpowers signed the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty, INF, which banned all nuclear and conventional missiles with ranges between 500 and 5,500 kilometers. This was the first agreement between the United States and the Soviet Union that reduced the number of nuclear weapons, and it marked a significant turning point in the arms race. As the Cold War continued to escalate, the United States and the Soviet Union found themselves engaged in a new kind of rivalry, one that would capture the imagination of people around the world: the space race. The space race was a competition between the two superpowers to being the first to achieve a series of milestones in space exploration, such as launching a satellite, sending a human into space, and landing on the moon. The space race began in earnest in 1957 when the Soviet Union launched the first artificial satellite, Sputnik 1, into orbit around the Earth. This was a major propaganda victory for the Soviet Union, as it demonstrated its technological prowess and raised concerns in the United States about its own capabilities. The United States responded by launching its own satellite, Explorer 1, in 1958. Over the next several years, both countries continued to achieve new milestones in space exploration. The Soviet Union sent the first human, Yuri Gagarin, into space in 1961, while the United States responded with its own astronaut, Alan Shepard, later that same year. The crowning achievement of the space race came in 1969, when the United States landed two astronauts, Neil Armstrong and Edwin Buzz Aldrin, on the Moon as part of the Apollo 11 mission. This was a major victory for the United States and a significant blow to the Soviet Union, which had been working on its own lunar program. The space race had significant cultural and political implications. It was a source of national pride for both countries, and the achievements of the space programs were seen as evidence of the superiority of their respective systems of government and ideology. The space race also had practical implications, as space technology was seen as having military applications and the ability to impact global communications and intelligence gathering. Despite the intense rivalry, there were also moments of cooperation and collaboration between the United States and the Soviet Union in space exploration. In 1975, an American Apollo spacecraft and a Soviet Soyuz spacecraft docked in orbit, marking the first international manned spaceflight. The space race had a lasting impact on science and technology, inspiring a new generation of scientists and engineers and paving the way for future space exploration. It also demonstrated the power of competition to drive innovation and technological progress. However, it also served as a reminder of the dangerous consequences of geopolitical rivalries, as the space race was driven in part by a desire to demonstrate superiority and gain an advantage in the global power struggle of the Cold War. Thank you for watching this episode of AI Tales, where we bring history to life through the power of AI. We hope you found this episode informative and entertaining, and that it deepened your understanding and appreciation of the world around us. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us continue to create and share more fascinating stories from the past, brought to life with the latest AI technology. Thank you again for tuning in to AI Tales, and we look forward to sharing more incredible stories with you soon.